Live from the chicken wing capital of the world, Buffalo, New York. You're listening to the Childcare Bridge podcast, your source for the best tips, tools, and tactics on how to market and grow your childcare center, ensuring total domination. Total domination. This is the Childcare Bridge, and this is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Childcare Bridge. Today's topic is about some of the habits, traits, and strategies of the most successful childcare centers that we work with. So, in being in the trenches with these centers day in and day out over the last 10 plus years, in getting to travel to many of these childcare centers' locations, I've started to notice that there are very specific habits, there are very specific traits, techniques, strategies that they use every day to achieve that level of success in this industry that is so sought after. And to me, the area that is most sought after is not simply becoming a 7- and 8-figure childcare center, but more so becoming a self-sustaining childcare business that doesn't need you to be there 24/7. You don't need to be at the beck and call of all of your directors and area directors and teachers and parents. If you want to be in the weeds because you enjoy that, you can, but you can also take a month vacation and spend it with your family if you would like. So I'm going to go in no particular order because all of these trends and habits are created equal. They're not one-off things that, well, you only have to do X in order to be a 7- and 8-figure center. You only have to do these two things. So they're stacking. They start to compound, and a lot of these things have taken years and years to achieve. But once they start to kind of tip, there's that tipping point, the magic starts to happen. So the first one is, and I guess I say no particular order, but this one really is the one that I see every one of our most successful centers have. And that's they know their numbers backwards and forward. They literally can rattle off any of the numbers that I ask. Hey, tell us about your current full-time enrollments at this location. Okay, great. You've got those numbers. And you might say, well, Michael, we have to know our numbers. We have to be able to have that for compliance. And if we get pop-ins and we need to stay in ratio, okay, that's only one metric. That's only one number. I'll say, how many tours did you give last week? How many of those families committed to enrolling? How many families do you have starting in 3 months? What percentage do you have by way of summer camp in terms of it being full already? What is your net profit looking like this year? How is your ratio maximization strategy working this year? Like, how are all of those different metrics, and they're able to rattle them off rapidly, like not to the point where they have them memorized, but they've got everything on a sheet. They're operating off of a metric-based dashboard. They're not having to go into 10 different systems to find the metrics that they're looking for. They're able to go one place. Great. They can see all of their marketing metrics, tours, leads, conversion percentages, how fast they're responding to leads that are coming in, how long the average tour is taking. They're tracking every little metric to see if any of those week over week or month over month or year over year start to go the wrong direction. They can spot those trends and make those tweaks before something starts to spiral. That's the first one. And those are just some of the metrics, but they know everything. All of their food costs and expenses and how much money they've put in the buildings and every metric. They manage the business based on metrics. They're not managing it based off of feelings. They're not managing it based off of what their director is simply saying. They're looking at the cold, hard data. The second one is mindset. Michael, what do you mean by mindset? They have a winning attitude. When things get thrown at them, they see it as an opportunity to pivot. All of a sudden, universal free pre-K is coming in their area. Great. They're going to pivot and do this. They're going to convert some classrooms over to infants, as an example. They're going to offer before, after school care. They're going to ramp up summer care. They're pivoting rather than this woe is me mentality. Now, I can tell you firsthand that I have had many, many days. I mean, it happens to me almost every week where I've got the woe is me and this is coming at me and this stinks and that challenge. But what I have found is that when I reframe myself, when I start my day with morning priming, so to speak, listening to positive stuff and Tony Robbins and win your day and that kind of material, it starts to reframe my brain. Rarely do the most successful centers that we work with complain. And they might say, oh, these are some of the challenges, but here's what we're doing to solve these challenges. Here's what we already have in place. So they're doing a lot of work on themselves. They do a lot of personal and professional development. They're students of people like Tony Robbins and reading and listening to those kinds of books. They're not so engrossed in simply industry trends, but they're making sure that they, as the owner of the business, have the right mindset that they need to get to that next level. The third trait is that they are always looking for expansion. And whether that means adding on more classrooms, if they're leasing a space, something opens up, they're always talking to the landlord and seeing they could have kind of first right of refusal. They're always looking for distressed centers to potentially acquire. They have relationships with business brokers, real estate agents, real estate brokers, all different kinds of relationships so that they're getting fed the information before everybody else. So they're grabbing these off-market deals. So you see a lot of centers will kind of switch hands and you didn't even realize it was for sale. And all of a sudden it's rebranded to a particular center that already has 5 or 10 locations. Well, that's because they are always on the hunt. Rather than waiting for something to come to them, they know that one of the best ways to continue to grow in this space is to grow their brand, grow their footprint. Now, they're not just going to go willy-nilly and buy any location or just add on a $50,000 a month lease for the sake of doing it. They go back to the math. They go back to knowing their numbers. They know that particular market. They've sized up how many competitors are there. They're leveraging data to see how many potential families could have care in that particular area. They have all of that data at their fingertips, all of it. And they're leveraging that to get the best deals, to negotiate the best leases, to add more space, so that then they are going back and continuing to grow their footprint, grow their brand. More capacity, more enrollments, more revenue, more profits. Next one, and I didn't want to start with this one to seem self-serving. They know that the fastest way to grow is via marketing. They understand when I talk about marketing math, and they understand when I say we need to generate 100 leads to get 30 tours, and your team should be closing 20 of those 30. But know that of those 20 at your current tuition price, let's say it's $1,000 a month, you just added $20,000 a month of revenue reoccurring for the next 20 months, if that's their average lifetime value of an enrollment. And they don't just look at, can we afford to invest $50,000 to get 20 enrollments? And I'm not saying that's what they're investing. They're going to quickly do the math in their head and say $400,000 over 2 years. What am I able to invest? What is our profit on those enrollments? And then also knowing that the icing on the cake is going to be second or third children from that same family and referrals. They don't count that in. That's the icing on the cake. But they very rapidly do that math. 20 enrollments, 20 months, great. If we do our job, year one, $200,000 in added revenue, year two, another $200,000, icing on the cake, referrals and additional revenue. They'll say, okay, great, Michael, we can afford to invest and still make a profit on those enrollments. 20,000, if that's the number. We can afford to invest $1,000, so 1 month of tuition to get those enrollments. So can we get 100 leads to equate to then 30 tours for 20,000? Yes or no? The answer in that level, is definitely yes. And then they go back to the first one that I talked about of data, and we're looking at it. Okay, great. We invested $16,000. We got 200 leads and 60 tours and 50 enrollments, and just they continue to play with that data, but they know that the only way that they're going to grow is more marketing and then continuing to grow their footprint. Doesn't have to be at the exact same time, but they're never coming to us saying, can we scale back? Can we pause our marketing? I have never had a successful center ever call us and say, can we pull back on our marketing? Ever. The only time that we might pull back is when they are full and at a wait list, but we're still continuing to do branding, and then we move those dollars to another one of their locations, and then we ramp up that particular location. But they're never getting into those conversations of, can we reduce our marketing spend? It just doesn't happen. Next one is staffing. They have staff that really want to be there. And I know this is much easier said than done, but when I've gone on site, I've noticed just a different vibe of those particular team members. They're happier. They're more welcoming to me and to the families, and they just have a much more upbeat attitude. And the reasons behind that are A, they're typically paying their staff more than all the other centers in the area. B, they have better benefits and they're just treating their team better. C, they have a well-defined culture. And all of those things go hand in hand. Paid more, better benefits, better culture, well-defined culture. So they're not just coming in as another teacher, a lead teacher, a director. Okay, great, you're going to make $40,000 a year, and here's how things are. They're coming in at better wages. Well, how can these centers afford to pay the better wages? They're charging premium tuition prices. They're optimizing their ratios. They're managing the business by the numbers, so they know that, great, they want to be at 106 enrollments. And that is their most profitable for where everything is for this particular location. And they put all of their eggs to get to that particular number, just as an example. But their team being happier, they attract better families. Those families then refer more people. Their families stay longer, so their retention is better. But it all goes back to that first one of knowing their numbers. All this stuff is plotted on a particular spreadsheet. And they know the average wage of each of their team members. They know the tenure of each of their team members. When they started, they know their attrition. Are they losing team members? They know their team member happiness because once a month they're using a tool to ask that particular question. And they know all of this stuff that we just talked about. So if I start to come full circle, knowing all of their numbers is at the cornerstone of all of this. It's the cornerstone to being able to become a 7- and 8-figure center. How can you make strategic decisions? How can you figure out, can you grow? Should you grow? Where's there more capacity? Where's there more meat on the bone? What's working? What's not working? If you cannot rattle off numbers, or at the very, very least, find all of those key numbers in 5 or 10 minutes. If you need days to find all those numbers, if you need to go ask your bookkeeper for all those numbers, or you need to go ask your marketing agency for all those numbers, you don't have the right relationship with your marketing agency, as an example. If your bookkeeper is only giving you updates every couple of months and they're just doing your books, you're missing out on the biggest thing. Bookkeepers are just that. You need more of the tax advisor role. Doesn't have to be a CPA either. Keep that in mind. But you need to be looking at these numbers. And they're starting their days with this stuff. They're not starting their day in firefighting mode and, oh my gosh, these 10 things are going wrong, because they've also put in strong systems and processes. When I've talked about what makes up what we call a no-joke childcare center, a no-joke childcare business is one that can run without you, one that's widely profitable, one that will stand the test of time. It is maximizing all of the things you're doing with your marketing, getting all of the money stuff straight, your manpower, which is your staff, happy, wanting to come to work, and all of your methodologies. Marketing, money, manpower, methodologies. Those are the 4 areas that they have mastered. But they have largely focused on this aspect of knowing their numbers, and then those numbers start to dictate where they need to pivot. So my homework assignment for you today is to look at all the different numbers that you might look at weekly, daily, monthly, and start to see, do you have all the key numbers that if you only were to look at this sheet, only this one particular dashboard, would it allow you to manage the entire business, make decisions, make recommendations off this one dashboard? Yes or no? If the answer is no, start looking at what other metrics that you need to bring into that dashboard and how you can make that happen. Manage by the numbers. Michael Tasner signing off. Make sure you tune in next week. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. See ya.